Good morning, everyone. We are here today to present the top 4 sales trends that could double your bottom line. I'm Shani Anderson Moore, and here to present this to you today is Troy Harrison, the Sales Navigator.
Thank you, Shani, and thank you everyone for showing up for today's webinar. I want to open this with a question. How relevant do you want to be in sales going forward? Yeah, that's a big question I think a lot of us are confronting right now. And for myself, I want to be very relevant going forward. And one of the things that I'm doing in order to do that is looking at where sales is going. And I've always been looking at where sales is going, but I think right now we are in a moment where the sales profession is really at a turning point. There are 4 key trends that are coming together that are really going to change the way that we do business going forward. And these 4 trends do not stand on their own. They are interrelated. And they're interrelated because they're a result of changes that are generational, cultural, and technological. And none of them stands on their own. These are the top 4 sales trends that could double your bottom line. And I'm serious when I say they could double your bottom line, because some people are going to embrace these trends and really prosper. Some people are going to stand on the corner, watch them go by, and they're going to get left behind. I'm hoping that everyone online here is online because they want to be relevant. They want to be one of those people or one of those companies that embraces them and prospers. So let's talk about what they are. These 4 trends really designate what our turning point is. They are artificial intelligence, the rise of younger buyers, the aging of the sales force, and the fact that buyers are much more empowered now. Let's talk about each one of these trends individually just for a moment, then we'll take a much deeper dive. You know, the sales profession has had a number of tech revolutions over the past 20, 30 years. We've had CRM, we've had the internet and all the transparency that goes with it. We have had social media and all the new possibilities for outreach and for prospecting and networking that comes with that. And now AI, artificial intelligence. And for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT because it's the most commonly available artificial intelligence platform. But I have an associate that I work with named Chase Oakwine. He has a company called Enterprise AI Consulting. And by the way, I'm going to be hosting a webinar specifically on ChatGPT next month, and he'll be my guest host on it, so you won't want to miss that one. But Chase tells me, and I believe it, AI is probably the final technological revolution that's going to hit sales, because there's really no place to go from here. Number 2, younger buyers. Again, generational and cultural influences, they look at sales and salespeople differently. They have different expectations, they have different demands and different paradigms for what we salespeople ought to be doing with them. It's a different approach. Number 3, the aging of the sales force. The average salesperson right now is 47.1 years old. Now, that's more than halfway to retirement age. 15 years ago, that was 42. So we have a graying sales force, which means that, and look, I'm no kid myself, and I know some of you aren't either. And I love the profession. I want everybody to stay in as long as we can, but we've got to start thinking about who's going to fill our shoes and how do we bring new blood into the sales profession. Finally, buyers nowadays are in control. Look, buyers have always been in control, but we've been able to fool ourselves that we had control over our customers. We don't. We have influence over our customers. So we need to be thinking about how we can influence today's more empowered, more in control buyer. With that in mind, let's go ahead and dive in, because these are the 4 trends that are going to change our business, our method of selling forever. Trend number 1, AI. And again, I'm going to focus on ChatGPT in this program. I think a lot of people really don't understand what AI and what ChatGPT are. They're not magic. When people don't understand something, they're scared of it. And there's a lot of fears out there about ChatGPT and AI. And, I was sitting around the other night with a few friends and I said, well, let's be honest, Troy, AI is going to take over the world and enslave us all. We're sitting there watching TV and they're talking about this. I said, no, it won't. And they said, well, how do you know? I got up, I pulled the plug on the TV went off. I said, any questions? They said, okay, we get your point. Look, AI is simply a new version of technology. Think about Google. Have you ever noticed that when you put a search term into Google, sometimes the more words you use, the less accurate your results get? That's because Google understands one word at a time. And when you put long phrases in, it struggles to figure out which words are the most important. ChatGPT AI is not like that. It's what's called a large language model. And what they've done is they have taught the computer to understand large language, which is to say paragraphs, context, even entire articles. It can read an entire 1,000-word or more article, understand the meaning of that, and react to it. That gives us a lot of new tools in the way that we communicate, but it is not magic. It's just another technology. I'd like to ask you something, and put a yes in the chat box if you have up to this point at least signed up for ChatGPT or another AI technology, and if you've done anything with that, and if you have logged on, if you've done a prompt, anything, have you done anything with ChatGPT? Now I'm noticing that there's several people, there's things coming up in the chat box. So good, we've got a lot of people that have done that. That's a very good thing. This is a technology that if you haven't done it yet, you're going to want to. I'll send out a follow-up email to this and it'll have a link to sign up for ChatGPT. But what it can do is, it's pretty amazing. But first, let's talk about the myths of ChatGPT. One of the things I hear, and I hear these when I go to conferences and speak to people, they say, well, AI is only for big companies. AI can replace salespeople. Matter of fact, a LinkedIn poll, can ChatGPT replace salespeople in 5 years, is really what got me down this road. That poll was, I think, 3 months ago now, and that's what really started me investigating it. Here's the truth. There are entirely too many salespeople in our profession that just go through the motions. And yeah, ChatGPT can replace a lot of what they do because they don't engage with their customers. They don't really get involved with them. They don't engage in the sales process. But ChatGPT cannot and will not replace a good salesperson because there are certain things that good salespeople do that ChatGPT cannot. And as far as AI is only for big companies, I'm going to show you in a minute that AI is actually a great leveler with big companies. Finally, I see AI will give all the answers. That's not true. Let me explain to you why it's not true. I'm sure you're familiar with GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. AI is the ultimate example of GIGO. Number one, ChatGPT works from a large data set and it was a curated data set, very large data set, but a lot of data was fed into ChatGPT, but that data set stops in November 2021. So for instance, you could ask it to describe the 2020 World Series, who won it, who won the games, and what all happened, and it'd do great. Ask it to describe the 2022 World Series and go, I don't know. Even more other applications that are more dynamic in terms of their data sets, they're not going to have all the answers. Again, AI does what we human beings tell it to do. And that's something that you've got to remember as we move forward with this. I'm going to show you a little bit about that momentarily. But let's talk about the opportunities of AI. Here's something that's very important to me, very near and dear to my heart. If you have worked with me, you know that most of my customers are the small to medium-sized company. I don't work with that many Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies. I will say that one of my clients told me that they had actually made the Fortune 100 last year. That was pretty cool. But most of my companies, the backbone of my business is that small and medium-sized company. So one of the things that I always do is I go out and I look for what I call levelers. What can I hook my clients up, or what can I tell you about that levels the playing field between you and those highly branded companies that have billions and billions of dollars available to do, marketing to advance their processes? AI is right now probably the most accessible and the best leveler that you can come up with. ChatGPT, what we're about to use, is free. There is an upgrade that's available. It's a big old $20 a month. I'll tell you this right now. I use the free version. I'm going to show you how it works momentarily. Another cool thing about ChatGPT is that there are a lot of people out there that have already developed plugins that connect ChatGPT to your CRM system. Full disclosure, I use HubSpot for my CRM system, again, because it's free. I use the free version of it. And there is a plugin. I've just recently downloaded it and installed it. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but you can actually use ChatGPT from within HubSpot, and it can access your customer data. So for instance, if you wanted to say summarize the last 3 years interactions with this particular customer and write an email recapping what we've done and talking about what we want to do, it can do that for you. I will tell you this too. ChatGPT gives you what I consider to be 80% content. It's not a finished product. And in a minute, I'll show you what I mean. Chase Oakwine, that I just told you about, he likes to describe ChatGPT this way. It's the best intern that you've ever had. It has a higher IQ than you. It has 20 PhDs, but it has no street smarts. You are the one who has to provide it with the street smarts. You are the one who has to tell it what to do. Now, here's a really cool thing. Every salesperson can, if they wish, have their own intern that can help you with a lot of things. And I'm going to give you an example of that right now. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to share a different screen and share screen, ChatGPT, share. Okay, this is my ChatGPT page. It's just ready for me to do a prompt. And again, remember, when you put in a prompt, you want to put in something descriptive. So first thing I'm going to ask it is, explain in 150 words or less what human salespeople can do that ChatGPT cannot. Please minimize. I hate business buzzwords. If you've read my stuff, you know that. Please minimize the use of buzzwords. That's just me. All right. What can salespeople do that ChatGPT cannot? It has to think about it for a minute, and now it's going to tell you. They can establish meaningful interpersonal connections with customers by employing empathy, active listening, and nonverbal cues. They understand customer needs and emotions. They tailor their approach, etc., etc., etc. So now we're going to take it to the next level. That was excellent. Now write a 50-word email to a potential sales training client, because hey, I'm a sales trainer, explaining what skills his salespeople should prioritize while using ChatGPT for what it does well. And I'm actually going to change this. I think 50 words is a little short. Let's make that 100 words. By the way, this is the first time I've ever done this prompt, so I don't know what it's going to say. Okay, so while ChatGPT excels at providing information and assistance, it's essential to equip your sales team with the skills to maximize its capabilities. Emphasize active listening skills, encouraging them to focus on asking probing questions. Honing their writing skills is critical, and emphasize the importance of being prompt and responsive to customer inquiries. By prioritizing those skills, that's not bad, and I can refine that as much as I want. Matter of fact, you see this button down here that says regenerate response? All that means is, try again. Again, this is just a very quick demonstration. This isn't designed to be an exhaustive, but what What I want to do for those of you that have not used ChatGPT, I want to whet your appetite a little bit. I want to stimulate your curiosity and make you think, you know what, this is something that I really need to start thinking about. And hopefully, in just those few minutes, I've done that, because using AI, incorporating AI into your sales program is something that I think everyone on this webinar should do. Use it for what it's good at. Now, here's the thing, like AI just said, AI cannot empathize, it cannot persuade, it cannot build meaningful relationships, it cannot even close. And there's some other things like asking probing questions, etc. Your job as salespeople to be relevant going forward. First of all, get good at using ChatGPT or AI for whatever it is good at, for the things that it is good at. And second of all, get good at the selling skills, those interpersonal human selling skills that AI cannot do. Get good at what AI cannot do. Build those soft selling skills. One more note I want to make here, and that is this. AI, ChatGPT, is not magic. As a matter of fact, ChatGPT is the app that everybody's talking about right now because it's most commonly available. But there are other apps that are out there and being developed. I'm actually going to be doing some research on those in the coming months. For all I know, ChatGPT could end up being the Sony Betamax of the AI industry. But the cool thing is, if you learn the concepts on ChatGPT while it's free, if you learn how to use it while it's free, those skills, that knowledge will carry over into other technologies. So this is something that I don't think you should wait on the sidelines for. Early adopters are going to be the ones who really succeed. And early adopters, especially who build their own interpersonal selling skills at the same time, you're going to be the top of the class. You're going to be the people that are leading your industry. So get good at it. Like I said, remember Gigo? Those emails, the verbiage that I just had it deliver, they're only as good as the prompts that I gave it. And I could have sat there and refined my prompts. I've done some practice on other things, and I've actually had it generate some stuff for me that I've used. But I wanted to show you in live, real time, what it's like from an ice cold perspective. It's funny, there was one article that I wrote 3 weeks ago that about 50% of it was written by ChatGPT. And when I say ChatGPT generates about 80% content, what I mean by that is that you have to be the one who edits it, who makes sure it's sounding like your voice, who is putting the detail and the pieces over that make it organic and make it generic. But it is a great time saver. Like I said, I wrote an article 3 weeks ago for my navigator. There was about 50% written by ChatGPT. And I had a client that I was discussing with last week, and I told her, I said, you know, that email or that article was about 50% written by ChatGPT. She said, I wondered. And I said, could you spot which 50%? Well, no. I said, okay, then. It's okay to, it's not cheating to use it if, again, you're putting it into your own voice. So what I encourage you to do, if you haven't logged on to it, log on to it. Again, I'll send you the link after this webinar. Log on to it. Get good at it. Start, at the very least, start understanding it. Next month, we'll have a much more detailed webinar on this topic. But let's talk about number 2, trend 2, younger buyers. And you'll notice I say, don't say millennials. Nobody is as tired of being called millennials as the millennials are. Besides, the oldest millennials are 43 years old now. They're not exactly babes in the woods. So, but younger buyers have come up through different cultural forces, different generational forces, and definitely different technological forces. And what that means is that they approach salespeople with a different perspective. Let's talk about some of the myths. And again, these are things that I have heard from people at conferences. Well, younger buyers, they only want to text. They don't want to talk on the phone. Younger buyers don't want to see salespeople. Younger buyers don't build relationships. These are some of the myths that I hear about younger buyers. Let's look at the opportunities. Let's take a look at each one of those myths. Younger buyers will see salespeople if you give them value for their time. And here's a big shift that I've seen in the difference between selling to, I'm, by the way, when I say older and younger, I'm putting my dividing line at 40 years old. That's fairly arbitrary. There's always obviously some bleed through on both sides, but work with me here. We're talking about the 20, 30 somethings that are now getting into positions of power where they have the opportunity to make significant purchase of things that we would like to sell to them. Younger buyers will see salespeople, but what they won't do is entertain the donut call where the salesperson walks in and says, here's the donuts, can I have this week's order? And they also won't entertain a 30-minute conversation about football before you ever start talking about business. What the attitude of younger buyers does is it makes us more tight and more precise in our communications. If you are going to cold call a younger buyer, and yes, cold calling still works if you do it well, your message has to be good. It has to be tight. It has to be focused. It has to be targeted. And it can't be, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your printing needs, because you're not going to get the appointment. It has to be speaking to a problem that they need solved. And it has to be very powerful. It has to be concise. And it has to convince that younger buyer that there is a value involved with seeing them. In other words, you've got to be able to tell them, here's how you're going to win by granting that appointment. Younger buyers only want a text. Well, okay, this is one that's not totally a myth. There's some truth to that. Younger buyers do tend to emphasize text and other non-voice to voice communications that is in a little different way than what we used to, those of us who are over 40. And again, those of us, I'm certainly in that bracket. So how do you handle that? Well, you have to get good at it. You have to get good at writing a text message that is persuasive, not just a text message that says, hey, can I come see you? It has to be a text message that is short, concise, to the point, and yet communicates value and is persuasive. You have to be versatile with your messaging applications. You have to be able to understand IM technology. You have to be able to understand social media. I've got one client that only wants to communicate with me on LinkedIn Messenger. Okay, I'm good at LinkedIn Messenger, so I can communicate with him that way. Here's what you really need to do. When you encounter a buyer, and really of any age, one of the questions you need to be asking them is, what is your favorite communication platform? How do you want me to communicate with you? I have a client who I have had for 17 years. I've been in business for 19 years. I've had this client for 17 years. He has been the president of 3 different companies in 17 years. Every company he brings me into, and I work with him, we've met. Now, if I were to call him today, I could call him every hour on the hour, leave messages, probably never get a return call. If I sent him an email right now, I would probably hear back from him. Today's Thursday. I'd probably hear back from him Monday or Tuesday. If I sent him a text right now, I'd probably have a response before this webinar is over. Here's the thing. He's 60 years old. It's not specifically an age thing. When it comes to communications, you have to meet people where they are. And even over 40 buyers have developed new tastes in how they like to be communicated. And there are still some younger buyers who, by the way, prefer a good old-fashioned phone call. Find out where they're at and get there. Younger buyers don't want to build relationships. Well, they do. But here's the difference. The old school of building relationships was that you would go in, you would find common personal interests. Hey, you like fishing? I like fishing. Or my kids are in track and field too. You would start building a relationship based on those personal issues, that personal connection, and then segue that into a business related relationship where essentially we're trying to get them to buy from their buddies, be their friend. Younger buyers have flipped that completely on its head. Now, to build a relationship with a younger buyer, you must give them business value first. In the business environment, your younger buyers are going to build relationships based on business needs, and then you're going to segue to the personal afterwards. By the way, I've always been like that. Maybe I guess I'm a little bit ahead of my time, but you have to be conscious of how this works in order to be able to build those meaningful relationships with younger buyers. You've got to be able to give them value from the sales call up front and then look to segue into business. The old way doesn't work, you know. And I'm not going to say a name, but it's in the chat. One of the attendees of this webinar was somebody that was in a training class that I did way back in 2010. And his comment to me was, "Hey, I'm 72 years old and I'm still at it." I think that's great. I think it is awesome that somebody, because he was in love with selling back then. I remember him. He's obviously still in love with selling. It's okay to be of a certain age. It's just, you just need to think about not selling of a certain age. I've got another friend, and oddly enough, this friend is he's not quite 60 yet. He sells old, and he wonders why he doesn't get the responses that he wants from younger buyers. He's still doing the same old stuff that he was doing 25, 30 years ago. You have to make a change. You have to look at how you give value to your customers. Build relationships with those buyers based on business needs first, then you can segue to the personal needs later. Focus on solving their business problems. Trend three, and this is a sensitive topic. I'm going to tell you that right up front, because in talking about this, I have been accused of ageism. Look, full disclosure, I'm 54 years old. I'm no kid. And some of the most aggressive, forward-thinking, innovative salespeople I know, their age starts with a 7. But the reality is, there are a lot of salespeople right now that are taking a well-deserved retirement after a great sales career, and the profession itself is struggling to bring people in behind them to fill those spots. By the way, if you're a manager or an owner of a business, let's get a little user participation here. If this is a concern to you, if you feel like you have a graying sales team and you're a little concerned about it, go ahead and put a yes in the chat box. I'm just curious where everybody's at on this. But let's talk about the need for younger salespeople. And again, I hear a lot of myths about this. Number one myth I hear is younger people aren't interested in sales as a career. And there is some truth to that. We're going to talk about why that is momentarily and how to turn it onto its head. Young people have no loyalty. I hear this a lot. That is definitely a myth. And young people don't want to work on commission. Okay, there's truth to that. Let's delve into that. And by the way, I think Shani said this early on, but as we go forward, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box. Everybody's muted. But if you have questions that you'd like to ask, put them in chat, and then Shani will get those back to me when I call for questions. I'll have her read those off. So let's talk about the opportunities among younger salespeople. You know, younger people aren't interested in sales. In my opinion, that is because we have done a lousy job of marketing sales as a profession. You know, there's a HubSpot survey that came out last year that said only 3% of people trust salespeople. Wow. The good news is we came in ahead of politicians and lawyers. So we got that going for us, right? But one of the concerns that we see with younger people, and survey after survey indicates this, is that a lot of younger people, particularly those that are just coming out of college, believe that the American dream is never going to be available to them. They don't see a way to get ahead. Sales is the most highly compensated profession where you can work with for other people, never own your own business, and still make a great living. Matter of fact, the last I looked, 5% of America's self-made millionaires are salespeople who have never owned their own business. They've worked for other people. Sales is a great way to get ahead. What we have to do in our recruiting is market sales and say, look, sales is a way that you can break out of that pack, and you really can achieve those things that you want to achieve. The house, the nice car, the family, it moves you out of the cubicle farms. And number two, I don't know if you guys have heard of hustle culture. Hustle culture is that idea that says that our jobs limit us so much that people need to come up with side hustles to make money. Well, the cool thing is sales tends to be a profession where the more you hustle, the more you make. So sales actually plays into that hustle culture a little bit. So we need to really rethink the way that we market sales. And if you are marketing a sales position right now, maybe you ought to give a little thought to your recruiting advertising. Matter of fact, I tell you what I would do. If you want to come up with a recruiting advertisement targeted at young people and you're stuck, heck, put it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to write the ad for you. Then overlay and edit across the top of that. I bet you'll come up with something good. Right now, you're saying to yourselves, well, Troy, have you done that? No, I haven't, but I have complete confidence it would help in doing so. I'm probably going to be doing that in a couple of weeks for a client. But think about how we market sales and your sales positions. Second, younger people have no loyalty. This is not true. The loyalty is different. Older generations had a lot of loyalty to organizations, to companies. And the idea was you come to work for us, you have a great career, 40-year career, you get the gold watch and the pension. Well, guess what? Everybody knows that the 40-year career, the gold watch, and the pension are a thing of the past in almost all cases. So younger people, you're right, don't have a lot of loyalty to companies. What they do have loyalty to is people, managers. Younger people have a lot of loyalty to good managers, to good leaders, to good supervisors. What does that mean for you? It means that if you're a manager, you need to get much better at building meaningful business-based relationships with younger people and with your salespeople. And as a company owner and upper manager, you need to be thinking about grooming great leaders because, hey, everybody moves on nowadays. And when your sales manager moves on, you need to think about who's going to take their place and what kind of leadership style they have. Management now is relationship-based leadership, and that's crucial. It is all about almost building relationships with your salespeople the same way you do your customers, focusing on their business needs, how the job addresses their business needs, and what you can do to help them achieve their needs. Now, younger people don't want to work on commission. Yeah, okay, that's true. Straight commission is dead. DEAD, dead, as in doorname. And it has been dead for about 15 years. When you attempt to recruit a straight commission salesperson, and there are exceptions to every rule, there's always exceptions to every rule, but most of the time you lose the part of the applicant pool that you would like to have because the best applicants want a level of security and they want to feel invested in by the company that they work for. So what do? You create a comp package that has, and my favorite comp packages have three components. They have a salary, they have a commission, they have a bonus for overachievement. Your salary should cover the basic needs of life. I never wanted my salesperson to be wondering if they could get the rent paid or food on the table. That creates a negative influence. I know people say, well, get them hungry. That creates motivation. It creates a negative motivator, and that negative motivator actually works against their ability to build relationships. They're out there thinking, I just need to make a sale, instead of thinking, I need to build productive relationships that are going to give me long-term sales. So create a comp package that has a salary that, and I'm talking probably about a more entry-level type job here. The salary should cover the basic necessity of life. The commission should cover the lifestyle. My philosophy is you're going to eat on the salary, but if you want to eat steaks every now and then, you better go sell something. The commission buys you the nice car. It buys you the nicer house. It gives you the date nights out, at the nice restaurants, that kind of thing. That's where your commission comes in. It incents for growth. And then finally, I like a bonus for overachievement. And for me, overachievement begins at about 25% above quota and goes onward and upward. By the way, if you don't have good measurements for quota and for your sales metrics, that's also very important. Here's something else you need for younger salespeople. What we find is that younger salespeople tend to be very task oriented and they tend to be very numbers oriented. And that's probably due to the way technology has affected their lives. You got to understand, the generation that is under 40 has come up just being marinated in communication technology. They're the most connected generation we've ever had. But it also means that they understand tasks and numbers. So it's even more important while you're building a relationship with your salespeople, it's even more important that you have a good set of sales metrics for activity and for achievement. So you can point them in the right direction, give them a roadmap to success, and let them know this is how you're doing a good job. But those are some of the opportunities available to, again, reverse that graying process. And by the way, when you have younger salespeople and you have innovative older salespeople, you can get some great cross-pollination. You know, a guy like the 72-year-old that I was telling you about on here, I know him. He has a wealth of knowledge that he could impart to younger salespeople that are coming in, and he might be able to draw from some of their technological connectedness and some of their adventurousness. So try to build sales teams where you have both, and you can do some great cross-pollination with that. Really come up with a strong result. Trend 4, customers rule all. Your sales process is worthless. The buyer's journey is what matters. And look, this is a reversal for me. I talked about sales processes for 17 years. But nowadays, your sales process doesn't matter. What matters is the buyer's journey, how the buyer moves from point A to point B in making a purchase, and how we salespeople can help them navigate it. So let's give some myths about today's empowered customers. Buyers do all of their research on the internet now. They don't need salespeople. They only buy based on price, and they only contact you wanting a price. And buyers don't have any loyalty these days. Okay, those are myths, but again, every myth, just like all the other myths we've talked about, every myth has a little bit of truth baked into it. So let's talk about those empowered customers. Buyers do all of their research on the internet. Well, there's some truth to that. Studies show that 57% of the buying process is completed before they reach out to a rep. There's two implications to that. Number one, if you have been active in prospecting and you have formed some sort of a relationship with that buyer before they reach out to a rep, well, you're probably going to be the rep that they reach out, and you have an opportunity to participate in that 57% and maybe set their standards. Even so, that leaves a lot on the table. That leaves 43% of their buying process yet to be completed. Get good at that 43%. That 43% includes probing questions that do deep dives into their real needs, their source of dissatisfaction with status quo. It means giving presentations that show you the advantages of buying from you, of adopting your game plan for fixing their problems. It means getting good at handling objections. It means getting good at closing sales. Get really, really good at those skills, and of course, get good at the other skills too. And you can win even with empowered buyers that know they're. This is the thing, buyers have always been in charge, but a lot of times they didn't know they were in charge. Nowadays they do. Did you know that there are websites out there that teach buyers how to spot a lot of the old sales tactics that salespeople would use? You know, junk like the upfront contract, you know, or the firing Horus, or a lot of these old sales techniques that unfortunately are still being taught. There are websites out there that teach buyers how to spot these and combat them. And they tell them, don't trust salespeople who do this. We have to work with their momentum. Well, buyers only buy on price. Well, if you don't give them other reasons to buy, yeah, price is going to be paramount. Your questioning, your ability to ask great questions of your buyer is going to help you understand other reasons that they would buy other than price. Get better at questioning, at deep dive questioning. Finally, buyers have no loyalty. Well, again, remember, younger people have a lot of loyalty to individuals, but not necessarily to companies. The people that buyers have loyalty to are salespeople who respect their buying process and who work with their sales process instead of just trying to jam them into the sales process that we have. If you work with the buyer, respect their knowledge, respect their intellect, respect their acumen, and respect where they're at in their buying process, and just navigate them through it, you can build a lot of loyalty, because I'm going to be honest with you, most salespeople aren't going to do this. Be the salesperson that does. Now, don't be this guy. And that slide got a little off somehow. I'm not sure how. You can probably tell what he's saying. Get off my lawn. I reached a moment about 6 months ago where I sat down and I took a really strong look at where I was at, where the sales profession was at, and I'm listening to a lot of the complaints that I get from people about today's buyer and younger buyers, younger salespeople, and all that kind of stuff. And I realized that's why we're at an inflection point. You can either be the old guy yelling, get off my lawn, or you can be the person that jumps on board and prospers with these four trends. And remember, all four of these trends are interconnected. You've probably seen some of those interconnections as we've gone on. You know, the empowered buyers tend to be younger buyers. The younger salespeople tend to be more adept at some of the technological issues, and they understand that level of research. All of these things are of a piece. So if you're asking me which one should I get good at, the answer is yes, all of them. Because to prosper going forward, you're going to need to be skilled at those things. Now, I've got some closing remarks. We've got some time for question and answer, but real quick, I want to give you a preview. Next month's webinar is going to be called Real Intelligence About Artificial Intelligence. And the guest presenter with me is going to be Chase Oakwine of Enterprise AI Consulting. That's going to be on Tuesday, August 8th at 11 a.m. Central Time. And in the follow-up email to this, I'm going to send you out a registration link. Registration will be open real shortly after this webinar. So I hope you can all be on that one. Now then, questions. Shani, I think we had a few of them,
Yes.
but if you have a question right now, go ahead and ask it in the chat. Shani, do we have anything?
Yes, we've got two questions thus far. One from Jeff, and he asks, will attendees of today's webinar receive a copy of the webinar and the slide deck?
I can send out the slide deck. Yeah, I'll do that. I will send that. Believe it or not, I actually have to figure out how to send that out, because we get like 68 participants. But yeah, I'll make sure everybody gets a slide deck.
Okay, excellent. Well, we've also got a question from Caleb, and he asks, does the loyalty cross over to younger buyers once you are in the door?
Okay, excellent question. The answer from what I have seen is yes. Again, that has to do with younger buyers being loyal to people and not organizations. So what I am seeing is that younger buyers are loyal to salespeople that solve their business needs. Oddly enough, they're less loyal to the company that employs those salespeople. And again, this flips things on its head. It used to be, and I always said for years, that 2/3 of the loyalty that any customer had was to the company and 1/3 to the salesperson. And that's why when salespeople left, they couldn't drag as many customers with them as they thought they did. That's actually been flipped on its head. Nowadays, I'm seeing, especially with younger buyers, I'm seeing that same loyalty component come into play with the salespeople versus the company. In other words, if a salesperson comes in, does a great job, solves that buyer's needs, then the buyer's going to be very loyal to that salesperson. If that salesperson leaves, there's a chance that the buyer's going to leave too, but less so with the company itself. What that means, and by the way, a lot of this mean that strategically, the old high, wide, and deep still applies. When you are developing a current customer relationship, you need to get as many good contacts within that company as possible. You need to be wide in having a lot of contacts. You need to be high in being as high on the corporate food chain as possible. And you need to be deep in terms of those people knowing exactly why they do business with you. Any other questions? Anything else in chat?
Haven't seen anything else yet, but please feel free to go ahead and send those questions now.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you think of a question later, go ahead and email me later and I'll answer it. My email's troy@troyharrison.com. I think everybody probably already has that, but yeah, if you have a question later, please go ahead and email that to me. And I'm going to move on to a few closing remarks. I hope that this webinar has been very helpful to you. I've enjoyed giving it. And oh, looks like we have a question or something in chat here. Best way to get wide within the organization from Neville. Excellent question, Neville. The best way to handle that is what I call an internal referral. When you're talking to someone, whoever your main contact is, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that your main contact is a chief engineer in a manufacturing plant. One of the things that works really well is to ask that person, who else should I know within this company? Great, can you introduce me to them? I have a few clients that work with large civil engineering firms. And in those civil engineering firms, there might be a big building with 100 project managers all working in the same room. And usually my clients' relationships start out with one project manager. So one of the things that they do is kind of tree within the organization. They build a tree. And after they've established a good, solid relationship with their current contact, what they will do is they will turn around and say, okay, could you introduce me to a couple other people that do what you do? Because it's very possible that you have a great relationship with this person over here. This person over here is doing the same exact thing, doesn't even know you exist. So yeah, work to branch out within within a customer organization, and that can get you additional contacts through internal referrals. Great question, Neville. Thank you for asking it. So today's webinar, oh, got another question. Good. Now we got some things going. Oh, good stuff. The Chat GPT demo was very helpful. Larry, thanks for the kind words. I'm glad it was helpful. Hang on, because I want to give you a little bit more help. What I've given you today is group help. I have talked to everyone as a group, which is wonderful. I love doing it. However, I have another element that is individual complimentary help, costs you the same as this webinar cost you, and that is open to owners, sales managers, other managers of companies. And it is called the Sales Strategy Review. And what the Sales Strategy Review is essentially is it's an opportunity to access my help and my expertise on a complimentary basis. Again, totally free. And what we'll do, it's about a 1 hour conversation, usually by Zoom. If you happen to be in Kansas City, I'd be happy to do it in person. But what we do is we go over your people and your processes for sales, and we figure out how can we align those with your goals? How can I point you to where it aligns with your goals? We look at your target customer. Do you have enough of those customers? How can I help you get more of those customers? By the way, when I say how can I help you, what I mean is what advice can I give you during that complimentary call? This is not a 1 hour sales call for me. It is an opportunity for me to delve into your situation and help you out. And one change in the Sales Strategy Review is now a point of emphasis in it is your tech stack. What technologies are you using? Are you using the right tools, and are you using them the right way? Basically, what we do during the Sales Strategy Review is we go through key components of your sales program. And during this, I promise you that I will give you at least 2 to 3 actionable takeaways that you can take to make money for yourself and for your company. And if you take advantage of this, I've done a lot of these, and I have people come up to me all the time, say, hey, I did a sales strategy review. It was very helpful. Thank you very much. And now I will tell you this, if there's an opportunity for us to work together, I'll tell you that, but that'll be a separate call. The Sales Strategy Review is all about you. You're the star of the show. Even if you just got one problem you want help with, schedule a sales strategy review and let's talk. If you would like a sales strategy review, just put a yes in the chat box right now. Put a yes with your name, and Shani will reach out to you, and Shani will get that scheduled up. And that sales strategy review will be one-on-one with me at your convenience. So please, I hope everyone as many people as possible takes advantage of this. I want to talk to a bunch of you. Now, why are upfront contracts considered old school selling? Oh, I see Brian James wants one. Brian, you're going to have to put up with me at your office, buddy. I'm coming over to Ace. That's an excellent question. Why are upfront contracts considered old school selling? Because, and for those of you who don't know, the upfront contract is a technique where, bring barbecue. You know what? I tell you what, Brian, I'll take you out for a barbecue. I don't like to do carry out barbecue, but you got it, buddy. There's a lot of good queue over where you're at. All right, upfront contracts. For those of you who don't know, the upfront contract is a technique where you initiate a sales meeting by saying to the customer, I plan to show you how I can help you. I'm paraphrasing, but basically what you're saying is, if I show you something that you need, you're interested in buying, right? It's an idea, it's a way to try and tie the customer down to get them to make an initial buying commitment before you've even shown them how you can solve their problems. It's old school selling because it's almost like an insurance policy. And the only thing you can do if they bail out at the end and say, nah, you show me this stuff. Yes, it solves my problems, but I'm not interested. The only thing you can do is whine. Today's customer is empowered enough, informed enough. They know they don't have to make that kind of a commitment. So it is one of those little things that detracts from the trust that you want to generate with your customer. Again, remember, only 3% of people trust salespeople, and when we use those old types of techniques, how that harms us. So, all right, are there any other questions, or does anyone else on the line want a sales strategy review? I'm going to go ahead. We're at 10:52, and my promise to everyone. Larry, you're welcome to reply that you want barbecue, but unless you're in Kansas City, I'm not going to buy it for you. I love it. This is always a lot of fun. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave this up for a few minutes just to let everybody who wants to sales strategy review get their yeses in. Shani, I know you're getting those down, but with that said, I want to thank everybody for being on this. I hope you guys have had a lot as much fun as I have. I've had an absolute blast, and I will send you out the link to next month's. Please be on that one. That's going to be a great webinar, and it's going to be about strictly AI and Chat GPT. You're going to want to be on that. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.